Police dog shows up, bleeding after 132 miles. What he did next left everyone in tears. The scream pierced through Sarah Collins' bedroom at 3:17 a.m., jolting her from a restless sleep. But it wasn't a human scream. It was Max, her Belgian Malinois partner, thrashing in his bed beside her. His paws twitched frantically, soft whimpers escaping his throat as he fought invisible enemies in his dreams. Sarah reached out, her fingers gently brushing his fur. After 6 years together, she knew every sign, every micro-expression of her K9 partner. Something was wrong. Max had been unsettled all evening, pacing the apartment, checking windows, his usual playful demeanor replaced by an anxious vigilance she hadn't seen since their last major case. The phone rang before she could soothe him awake. Max's eyes snapped open, instantly alert, as if he'd been expecting the call. "Collins," she answered, already reaching for her tactical vest hanging by the bedroom door. The voice on the other end belonged to Captain Rodriguez, and his words made her blood run cold. "We've got 3 missing kids from the Riverside district. All disappeared within the last 48 hours. Emily Martinez, age 8, Tommy Chen, age 7, Maria Gonzalez, age 9. Sarah's free hand instinctively found Max's head as she processed the information. 3 children, same neighborhood, no ransom demands. The implications were too horrific to voice. "I'm sending you the addresses," Rodriguez continued. "The last kidnapping happened less than an hour ago. Emily Martinez's mother heard a noise, went to check on her daughter, found an empty bed. Window was still locked from the inside. Max was already by the door, tactical harness in his mouth, eyes fixed on Sarah with an intensity that made her skin prickle. He knew. Somehow, he always knew when the cases would be different. 20 minutes later, their unmarked police SUV pulled up to the Martinez residence. Red and blue lights from patrol cars painted the pre-dawn darkness in alternating shadows. Max's posture changed the moment his paws hit the ground. Head high, ears forward, every muscle coiled with purpose. The girl's bedroom was a shrine to childhood innocence, frozen in terror. Pink walls, stuffed animals arranged carefully on the bed, a half-finished math worksheet on the desk. Nothing seemed disturbed except for the rumpled Pokemon sheets where Emily should have been sleeping. Sarah watched as Max worked the room methodically, his nose tracing invisible paths through the air. 6 years of working together had taught her to read his body language like a book. The slight tension in his shoulders meant he'd picked up a scent. The tilt of his head indicated confusion. Something wasn't adding up. Then his entire demeanor shifted. Max's head snapped toward the window, a low growl rumbling in his chest. Sarah followed his gaze, but saw only darkness beyond the glass. "What is it, partner?" she whispered. Instead of answering, Max bolted from the room, nearly knocking over a crime scene technician in his haste. Sarah sprinted after him, trusting his instincts more than her own logic. He led her through the house, past the clutch of officers interviewing Emily's distraught parents, and out into the backyard. The garden was small, but meticulously maintained. Rose bushes lined a wooden fence, their blooms closed against the night. Max stopped at one particular bush, his nose working furiously at the freshly turned soil beneath it. "Someone's been digging here," Sarah noted, pulling out her flashlight. The beam revealed subtle irregularities in the dirt, too precise to be from normal gardening. Max didn't wait for permission. His paws attacked the soil with desperate intensity, sending dark clumps flying. Sarah was about to call him off when she saw it, a glint of metal and plastic. A USB drive, sealed in a waterproof bag, buried precisely 4 inches deep. Sarah felt the familiar surge of adrenaline that came with a breakthrough, but it was tempered by a creeping dread. This wasn't a random kidnapping. The drive had been planted deliberately, meant to be found. They were being watched, tested. Inside the house, she heard Emily's mother break down again, her sobs carrying through the open window. "Find my baby," the woman had begged when they first arrived. "Please, just find my baby." Max pressed against Sarah's leg, his body trembling with contained energy. In the beam of her flashlight, she saw something else on his muzzle, a smear of red. Blood. Fresh blood on soil that should have been clean. "Get me the forensics team," she called to the nearest officer. "And tell Captain Rodriguez we're going to need the cyber unit. Now!" As if in response to her words, her phone buzzed with an incoming text. Unknown number. One line of text that made her breath catch. "Very good, Detective Collins. Now let's see if you're ready for what comes next." Max's growl deepened, his eyes fixed on the shadows beyond the garden fence. Sarah unholstered her weapon, every instinct screaming that this was just the beginning. Someone was orchestrating this, turning 3 missing children into pieces of a larger, darker game, and somehow they knew exactly who would be assigned to find them. "Stay close, partner," she whispered to Max. "I have a feeling this is going to be the case that changes everything." She had no idea just how right she was, or that in less than 48 hours her faithful partner would be fighting for his life, leaving a trail of blood across 3 counties to bring justice to a monster hiding behind a respectable facade. The game was just beginning, and the stakes were already impossibly high. The USB drive's contents filled the precinct's main screen with nightmare fuel. Surveillance footage, methodically organized, showed weeks of children being followed. Emily Martinez walking home from school, Tommy Chen at baseball practice, Maria Gonzalez feeding ducks at the park. But it was the last video that made Sarah's coffee cup slip from her fingers, shattering against the floor. Jerry Matthews, the substitute teacher they'd been questioning for hours, appeared in crystal-clear footage, leading Emily Martinez into a white van. The timestamp showed 2:47 a.m., less than an hour before they found the drive. "He's playing with us," Sarah muttered, watching Max's hackles rise as he stared at Matthew's image. The K-9 hadn't stopped growling since they'd brought the teacher in for questioning. Captain Rodriguez stepped closer to the screen. Matthews's GPS shows him at the abandoned Riverside Industrial Complex right now, claims he's been there all night, grading papers. The captain's air quotes dripped with skepticism. Sarah checked her tactical vest, feeling Max's eyes tracking her every move. "We'll check it out, but something's not right. This is too easy." Drez! The industrial complex loomed against the pre-dawn sky, a maze of corrugated metal and broken dreams. Sarah's flashlight beam caught fragments of graffiti and rusted warning signs as she and Max approached Building C, where Matthew's phone signal pulsed like a digital heartbeat. Max's behavior changed the moment they crossed the threshold. His usual methodical search pattern became erratic, his nose working overtime as he zigzagged across the concrete floor. Sarah recognized the signs, multiple scent trails, layered and complex, confusing even his highly trained senses. A crash echoed from the back of the building. Before Sarah could radio for backup, Max bolted toward the sound, disappearing into the darkness. "Max, wait!" she called, but her partner was already gone, driven by something she couldn't yet understand. The sound of breaking glass shattered the night, followed by a man's scream and the unmistakable snarl of her partner. Sarah ran toward the chaos, gun drawn, heart pounding. "Atlanta PD, freeze!" She rounded a corner to find fresh blood spattering the floor. A broken window gaped like a jagged mouth in the wall, and through it she caught a glimpse of Max pursuing a dark figure across the loading dock. But something was wrong. Max's normally fluid gait was uneven, and in her flashlight beam she saw blood matting his dark fur. Sarah's radio crackled. "Collins, we've got reports of 2 more missing children. Buckhead and Decatur, last hour, same MO. The realization hit her like a physical blow. Matthews wasn't the mastermind. He was a distraction. While they'd been focused on him, the real kidnappers had struck again, and Max somehow had figured it out first. Her training screamed at her to wait for backup. Protocol demanded it. But through the broken window, she could see the blood trail her partner was leaving behind as he pursued what might be their only lead. Sarah's hand found the St. Michael medallion she wore under her vest, the same one she'd been given the day she graduated from the academy. "Protect him," she whispered, then made her decision. The loading dock was a fallen world of twisted metal and deeper shadows. Max's blood trail led to a chain-link fence, now sporting a fresh hole. Beyond it, tire tracks cut through the gravel, still fresh enough that small stones hadn't settled back into place. Her radio buzzed again. "Collins, what's your status? Backup is 4 minutes out." Sarah watched the blood drops disappear into the darkness. Somewhere out there, her partner was hunting. Somewhere out there, 5 children were waiting to be found. And every second she delayed could mean another life lost. "Suspect is mobile," she reported. "Max is in pursuit. I'm following his trail." She hesitated, then added, "And Captain, better alert the neighboring counties. I have a feeling this is going to be a long night." The captain's response was lost in static as Sarah slipped through the fence. The tire tracks led north toward the county line. Her flashlight caught something in the gravel, Max's tactical ID badge, torn from his collar, pointing like an arrow in the direction he'd gone. Even injured, her partner was leaving her a trail to follow. Sarah smiled grimly as she retrieved the badge. 6 years together had taught them both that sometimes the only way to follow procedure was to break it completely. A distant police siren wailed, backup finally arriving at the industrial complex. But Sarah was already running, following the breadcrumbs of blood and courage her partner had left behind. Whatever they were about to uncover, whatever web they'd stumbled into, one thing was certain. It was far bigger and darker than a single kidnapper with a white van. Her phone buzzed with another text from the unknown number. "Clever dog you have, detective. But will he survive long enough to show you the truth?" Sarah's jaw clenched as she picked up her pace. The night stretched ahead full of shadows and secrets, but somewhere in that darkness, Max was blazing a trail straight to the heart of a nightmare. And come hell or high water, she was going to follow it. Behind her, the industrial complex disappeared into the night. Matthew's abandoned van, just another prop in an elaborate deception. Ahead, a blood trail glinted in her flashlight beam, each drop a testament to her partner's determination. The real hunt was just beginning, and this time, the hunters had become the hunted. The GPS tracker in Max's collar showed him moving north at impossible speeds. Sarah's hands gripped the steering wheel as she followed the signal, her mind racing back to the day she'd first met the dog. Everyone said was too broken for police work. "He's uncontrollable," the canine trainer had warned her 6 years ago, leading her to a kennel where a younger Max paced restlessly. "Failed out of 3 other programs, too independent, won't follow basic commands. After what happened with Rex, you need a reliable partner, not a wild card." Rex. Even now, the name sent a spike of pain through her chest. Her first canine partner, killed in the line of duty during a warehouse raid gone wrong. The official report cited unforeseen circumstances, but Sarah knew the truth. She'd hesitated, doubted Rex's warning signals, and that moment of uncertainty had cost him his life. The memory flashed through her mind as she swerved around a slower vehicle, Rex barking frantically at the warehouse door, her split-second decision to wait for backup, the explosion that followed. They'd found her partner's body in the rubble, along with evidence that could have brought down one of Atlanta's biggest drug operations. Her dashboard computer beeped with an incoming alert. 2 counties had already reported sightings of a blood-stained Belgian Malinois racing through their jurisdictions. Max was cutting straight through urban areas, taking the most direct route regardless of obstacles, just like he had during their first case together. That day was seared into her memory, 3 months into their reluctant partnership, responding to what should have been a routine domestic disturbance. Max had suddenly broken protocol, ignoring her commands and charging into the house through a back window. Sarah had followed, furious, only to find him attacking a man who had a gun trained on 2 children hidden in a closet. "He doesn't disobey commands," the veteran K-9 officer had explained later, watching Max play gently with the rescued kids. "He evaluates situations and makes judgment calls. That's why the other programs rejected him. He thinks too much." Her phone lit up with a call from the forensics lab. "Detective Collins, we found something odd in the blood samples from the industrial complex. There are two distinct types, your partner's and someone else's. The second sample, it matches evidence from an unsolved case from 5 years ago." Sarah's breath caught. 5 years ago. The case that had ended her career in narcotics and led her to the K9 unit. "Send me everything you have," she ordered, already pulling over to check her laptop. The file filled her screen. Case 47-285, the investigation that had brought down 3 corrupt officers but failed to catch the mastermind. The case that had put a target on her back after she testified against her former colleagues. The case that had started with a string of missing children. Max's GPS signal suddenly stopped moving, holding steady at a location just off Interstate 85. Sarah zoomed in on the map and felt her blood run cold. The Riverside Shipping Company's main distribution center, owned by Marcus Wheeler. Wheeler. The name brought back another flood of memories. The decorated detective turned successful businessman, the one suspect they could never quite pin down during the corruption investigation. The man who'd smiled at her in the courthouse hallway and whispered, "Your time will come, Collins." Her dashboard camera footage from earlier that night automatically uploaded, and something caught her eye. Rewinding the video, she froze on a frame showing the white van at the industrial complex. There, barely visible in the corner, a Riverside Shipping Company logo, partially scratched off. "Oh, God," Sarah whispered, the pieces falling into place. Wheeler hadn't left the force after the investigation. He'd just changed tactics, built a legitimate business empire as cover for something much darker, and now he was taunting her, using missing children as bait. Max had figured it out first. That's why he'd broken protocol, why he was bleeding his way across 3 counties. He wasn't just chasing a kidnapper. He was leading her straight to the heart of a conspiracy that had haunted Atlanta for half a decade. Her phone buzzed with another message from the unknown number. "Nice to see you again, Detective Collins. Your dog is quite remarkable. Shame about what happened to your last partner. History has a way of repeating itself." Sarah's hands shook as she pulled up the case files from Rex's death. The warehouse that exploded. It had been owned by a shell company. The paperwork had been incomplete, but there it was, a familiar signature on the lease agreement. Marcus Wheeler. "All this time," she breathed, starting the engine. "It was you all along." The radio crackled with urgent updates. More blood trails found. Security cameras disabled along Interstate 85. A night watchman at a trucking facility reporting a dark shape that moved too fast to be human. Sarah grabbed her radio. "This is Detective Collins. I need all available units to converge on Riverside Shipping. And get me everything we have on Marcus Wheeler from the past 5 years. Every property, every shell company, every associate." She pulled back onto the highway, lights flashing but sirens silent. Max's GPS signal remained steady, like a beacon, drawing her toward a confrontation 6 years in the making, or maybe longer. Maybe since that first warehouse explosion, since the moment she'd chosen caution over trust and lost her partner as a result. "I won't make that mistake again," she promised the night, thinking of Max bleeding somewhere ahead, thinking of 5 missing children, thinking of all the loose ends from a case she'd never truly closed. Her GPS indicated she was 30 minutes from Riverside Shipping. Somewhere in the darkness, Max was waiting. Somewhere in the darkness, Wheeler was watching. And this time, Sarah Collins wasn't going to hesitate. The radio squawked again. "Be advised, Detective Collins, SWAT is mobilizing. Orders are to wait for full tactical support before approaching the facility." Sarah thought of Max, injured but still fighting. Thought of Rex, who died because she'd waited. Thought of 5 families waiting to learn their children's fate. "Copy that," she responded, then clicked off her radio. Some orders were meant to be broken. Some debts could only be paid in blood and courage. And her partner had already given plenty of both. The highway stretched ahead, empty in the pre-dawn darkness. Sarah Collins pressed the accelerator, racing toward either redemption or reckoning. maybe both. Behind her, Atlanta slept uneasily. Ahead, a trail of blood led to answers she'd spent 6 years trying to find. The riverside shipping facility emerged from the darkness like a fortress. Sarah killed her headlights half a mile out, counting the armed guards patrolling the perimeter. Too many for a legitimate shipping company at 4:30 a.m. Max's GPS signal pulsed steadily from somewhere inside the maze of loading docks and warehouses. Her phone vibrated. The image that appeared made her stomach lurch. Max, blood matting his dark fur, muzzle curled in a defiant snarl. He was tied to a support beam in what looked like a storage room. Behind him, stacked against the wall, were small cages. Inside them, she could make out the huddled shapes of not just 5, but 8 children. The message below the photo was simple. Choose, Detective Collins. Your partner or the children. You have 30 minutes before the trucks leave. Come alone, or they all die. Her earpiece crackled. Detective Collins, satellite thermal imaging shows multiple armed individuals inside Building C. Orders are to maintain position until tactical support arrives. She reached for her radio to acknowledge, but another message flashed across her phone, a live video feed. The camera panned across the cages, then turned to Max. Sarah's blood froze as a red laser sight appeared on her partner's head. 29 minutes, Detective. Tick-tock. I'm sorry, she whispered into her radio, then switched it off. Some choices weren't really choices at all. The facility's chain-link fence had already been cut through. Max's work, she noted, seeing the blood traces. She followed his trail, keeping to the shadows, counting cameras and noting their blind spots. A guard passed barely 10 feet from her position. His radio squawked, "Package transfer in 20 minutes. All units maintain position." Package transfer. The same terminology from the corruption case 5 years ago. Wheeler hadn't just continued his operation, he'd expanded it. The shipping company wasn't a cover. It was the mechanism for a trafficking network that probably spanned the entire southeast. She reached Building C unseen, but the entrance was illuminated and guarded. Then she spotted it, an old drainage pipe, partially hidden by weeds. Large enough for a Belgian Malinois to squeeze through. Large enough for her if she ditched her tactical vest. The pipe led to a maintenance room, empty, but she could hear voices above, multiple sets of boots on metal walkways. Somewhere in this labyrinth, her partner and 8 children were waiting. Somewhere in this darkness, Marcus Wheeler was watching. The storage room appeared exactly as it had in the photo, but it was empty. The cages were there, doors hanging open. On the wall, someone had spray-painted fresh numbers. Loading Bay 7. Wheeler was herding her, leading her deeper into his trap. But he'd made one crucial mistake. He thought she was playing his game. In reality, she was playing Max's. Her partner hadn't been captured while blindly chasing a suspect. Every drop of blood, every seeming misstep had been deliberate. Max had created a trail not just for her to follow, but for every K9 unit in 3 counties. And Wheeler, so focused on his elaborate trap, hadn't considered what that meant. A new sound reached her ears. Dogs barking in the distance, not just 1 or 2, but many. The K9 units had followed Max's blood trail, just as he'd intended. Wheeler had been so busy watching her, he'd missed the real threat. Her phone lit up. "Time's up, Detective. Loading Bay 7 now, or they all die." Sarah stepped out of the shadows, weapon ready. Marcus Wheeler's voice echoed from above. "Just like old times, Collins. You never could follow orders, never could trust the system." "You're right," she called back. "I trust my partner instead." The loading bay doors rolled up, revealing the pre-dawn sky. Wheeler stood on a catwalk above, a remote detonator in one hand, a gun in the other. Below him, 8 children huddled together, surrounded by armed men. Max lay at Wheeler's feet, blood-stained but conscious, his eyes locked on Sarah. "Drop your weapon," Wheeler commanded, "or I send this whole place up like that warehouse 5 years ago." Sarah looked at Max, saw the slight tilt of his head, the tension in his muscles. She smiled. "Actually," she said, "we're right on time." The first light of dawn broke over the horizon, and with it came the sound Wheeler had been too arrogant to notice. Siren, dozens of them. And much closer, growing louder by the second, the triumphant chorus of K9 units converging on the scent trail Max had left them. Wheeler's eyes widened as he finally understood. "Kill them all!" he screamed, raising the detonator, but Max had been waiting for this moment. In one fluid motion, he launched himself at Wheeler's arm, teeth sinking into flesh. The detonator clattered to the catwalk as SWAT teams breached the building from all sides. Sarah dove for the children as K9 units poured through every entrance, the night exploding into chaos of barking, shouting, and gunfire. Wheeler's empire was falling, his men surrounded, his carefully laid trap turned into a cage of his own making, and somewhere in the chaos, a blood-stained Belgian Malinois finally allowed himself to lie down, his mission complete, his partner safe, his trust in the system he'd helped create proven right once again. Chaos erupted in Loading Bay 7. Wheeler's men opened fire as SWAT teams breached from multiple entry points. Sarah shielded the children with her body, dragging them behind a stack of metal crates. Above, Max maintained his grip on Wheeler's arm, the detonator lying just out of reach on the catwalk. "Get them out!" Sarah shouted to the nearest SWAT officer, gesturing at the children. Years of training kicked in as she provided covering fire, watching each child being evacuated through a human corridor of tactical gear and protective shields. Wheeler slammed his gun into Max's ribs, but her partner refused to release his grip. Blood, both old and fresh, matted the dog's fur, yet his eyes remained fierce and focused. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for every child who disappeared into Wheeler's trucks over the years. "Collins!" Wheeler's voice carried over the gunfire. "Call off your dog, or I swear I'll finish what I started 5 years ago." Sarah caught Max's eye. In that split-second look, 6 years of partnership condensed into pure understanding. Max wasn't waiting for her command. He was waiting for her signal. Just like that first case together, when everyone said he was too unpredictable, too independent to be a police dog. "It's over, Wheeler," she called back, moving into position. "Your network is exposed. We found your records, your routes, everything. K9 units are hitting every warehouse in your system right now." Wheeler laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off metal walls. "You think this is the end? I own half the transport companies in the southeast. I have judges in my pocket, cops on my payroll. You can't—" Max chose that moment to shift his grip, teeth releasing Wheeler's arm, only to clamp down on his shoulder. The momentum sent both of them staggering. Wheeler's gun skittered across the catwalk, but his hand found the fallen detonator. "Down!" Sarah screamed, but it was too late. Wheeler pressed the button. Explosions rocked the building, but not where Wheeler had planned. The charges detonated in sequence, but in empty loading bays. During the chaos, SWAT had found and relocated the explosives, following the intel Sarah had pieced together from Max's trail. The shock on Wheeler's face was everything. "How? You forgot who you were dealing with," Sarah said, ascending the catwalk stairs. "Max wasn't running blind when you spotted him. He was mapping your entire operation. Every drop of blood he left was a breadcrumb for other K9 units to follow." Wheeler's empire was crumbling around him. Through the loading bay doors, she could see more police vehicles arriving. K9 units from 3 counties, their dogs following the trail Max had intentionally blazed across jurisdictions. "You're just like your last partner," Wheeler spat, blood dripping from where Max held him. Rex couldn't leave well enough alone either. Had to keep digging, keep pushing. Look what happened to him. Sarah's grip tightened on her weapon. "Rex died because I hesitated, because I didn't trust him when he tried to warn me about you. I've spent 6 years making sure that never happens again." Wheeler's hand inched toward his ankle holster. Max growled, the sound vibrating through the catwalk. One more choice, one more moment of trust. "Max," Sarah said quietly, "release." Her partner let go instantly, dropping into a ready stance. Wheeler lunged for his backup weapon, but Sarah was already moving. 6 years of training with Max had taught her to read body language, to anticipate movement before it happened. Her strike was precise, decisive. Wheeler went down hard. As Sarah secured the handcuffs, she heard the click of cameras below. News crews had arrived, drawn by the explosions and police presence. Tomorrow's headlines would expose everything: the trafficking network, the corrupted officials, the years of children vanishing into unmarked trucks. "Sarah," Captain Rodriguez's voice came from behind her. "The children are safe, all of them. And we found documents in Wheeler's office, names, dates, every trafficking route for the past 5 years." She nodded, watching other officers take Wheeler away. Max pressed against her leg, his job done, finally allowing himself to show his exhaustion. Blood still seeped from his wounds, but his eyes were clear and proud. "Get the medic for him," she told Rodriguez. "He's earned it." As paramedics worked on Max, Sarah knelt beside her partner. Around them, the sunrise painted the loading bay in shades of gold and promise. Wheeler's empire had fallen, brought down not by high-tech surveillance or inside informants, but by a dog everyone had deemed too broken for police work. "Good boy," she whispered, touching her forehead to his. Max's tail thumped weakly against the floor, leaving small smears of blood that would soon be washed away. But the trail he'd blazed across 3 counties would remain, a testament to the unshakable bond between a handler and her canine partner. The night was ending. Justice had been served, and somewhere in the growing light, Sarah could almost imagine Rex watching, finally at peace with how things had turned out. The courthouse buzzed with nervous energy. Sarah sat in the front row, Max at her feet, both watching as Marcus Wheeler was led in, wearing handcuffs and an orange jumpsuit. 3 months had passed since the raid at Riverside Shipping, but the ripples were still spreading through Atlanta's justice system. 2 judges had resigned. 12 police officers faced corruption charges. Wheeler's trafficking network, spanning 5 states and countless shattered lives, had been completely dismantled. But today wasn't about the bigger picture. It was about 8 specific children and their families. Max's ears perked up as Emily Martinez entered with her parents. The little girl broke away from her mother's grip and ran straight to the Belgian Malinois, wrapping her arms around his neck. Sarah watched as her partner, once deemed too unpredictable for police work, gently nuzzled the child he'd helped save. "He really is a hero," Emily whispered, touching the fresh scar on Max's shoulder. The wound from that night had healed, leaving another mark to join the collection that told their story. Sarah touched the St. Michael medallion under her collar, thinking of all the scars that didn't show. Wheeler's attorney had tried to plea bargain, offering to name more corrupt officials in exchange for leniency. The district attorney's response had been swift. They already had everything. Max's calculated trail of blood had led investigators to every warehouse, every shipping route, every hidden document in Wheeler's empire. "All rise," the bailiff called. Sarah stood, feeling Max shift to attention beside her. Judge Catherine Chen took her place at the bench, her expression stern as she surveyed the packed courtroom. Security was tight. Wheeler still had friends in high places, even if they were scrambling to distance themselves now. "Marcus Wheeler," Judge Chen began, "this court has reviewed the evidence presented during trial. The jury has found you guilty on all counts: human trafficking, kidnapping, attempted murder of a police officer, conspiracy to commit murder, and corruption under color of authority." Wheeler stood stone-faced, but Sarah saw his hands trembling. Behind her, Emily's mother was crying softly. Other families filled the rows, each carrying their own nightmare of waiting, searching, praying for children who'd vanished into Wheeler's trucks. "Before I pass sentence," the judge continued, "I want to note something remarkable about this case. It wasn't broken by high-tech surveillance or insider information. It was solved by a police dog who ran bleeding through 3 counties, leaving a trail for others to follow, a dog that everyone had written off as uncontrollable." Max's tail thumped once against the floor. Sarah smiled, remembering all those years ago, when the K9 trainer had warned her away from the problem dog no one else wanted. The evidence he helped uncover has led to 47 arrests across 5 states. 23 children have been rescued from trafficking, And most importantly, 8 families in this courtroom today have their children back home where they belong. The judge's gaze fixed on Wheeler. You preyed on the most vulnerable members of our society. You corrupted the very systems meant to protect them, and you were brought down by the most pure form of justice I've ever seen, a dog who simply refused to let evil triumph. Wheeler finally spoke, his voice hoarse. Your Honor, I request— The only thing you'll be requesting, Judge Chen cut him off, is which maximum security facility you'd prefer to spend the rest of your life in. This court sentences you to 45 years without possibility of parole, to be served consecutively with any sentences from pending charges in other jurisdictions. The gavel struck. Wheeler's shoulders slumped as reality set in. But Sarah wasn't watching him anymore. She was watching Emily Martinez hug Max again, watching other children come forward to pet the dog who'd bled for them, watching parents wipe away tears of relief and gratitude. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited with cameras and microphones. Sarah fielded the basic questions, while Max sat regally beside her, his posture perfect despite the attention. Yes, Wheeler's network was finished. Yes, more arrests were coming. Yes, the K9 unit would continue investigating similar cases, but it was Emily Martinez who gave them the best quote of the day. Looking straight into the cameras, her hand buried in Max's fur, she said simply, "Sometimes angels have 4 legs and a tail." That evening, Sarah took Max to his favorite park. As he chased his beloved tennis ball, the one reward he'd accept for all his heroics, she thought about choices and trust and redemption, about a warehouse explosion 5 years ago, and how losing one partner had led her to finding another who would change everything. Her phone buzzed with a message from Captain Rodriguez. The official commendation ceremony would be next week. Max would receive the department's Medal of Valor, the first K9 officer in Atlanta's history to be so honored. Sarah already had the perfect spot picked out to display it, right next to Rex's posthumous medal. Max returned with the ball, dropping it at her feet. His dark eyes held that same intelligence, that same unwavering loyalty that had made everyone else nervous. But Sarah knew better now. Sometimes the most reliable partner wasn't the one who followed orders blindly, but the one who thought for himself and chose to stay by your side anyway. "Come on, partner," she said, pocketing the tennis ball. "Let's go home." They walked together in the fading light, a detective and her K9, their shadows stretching long across grass, still damp with morning dew. Somewhere in the city, 8 families were having dinner together, whole and safe. Somewhere in a prison cell, Marcus Wheeler was beginning his new life of steel bars and concrete walls. And here, in this quiet moment between cases, a dog everyone had deemed too broken for police work rested his head against his partner's leg, secure in the knowledge that sometimes the greatest acts of heroism came not from following rules, but from following your heart.